Oh no! Welcome to another episode of Alan Boomer Have a Chat. Oh no! I'm trying to be quiet, Al, because your dad's sleeping. Yeah, we do have to try to be quiet if we can. Let me move the microphone a little closer to where we are. A little closer. Kind of made a little squiggly line there on Audacity there. I moved the microphone. Don't know if what it recorded there, but oh no! It probably recorded farting sounds. Oh no! Not farting sounds, and nobody was farting. Oh, I moved the microphone a little bit and it made another squiggly line on Audacity. But today I wanted to talk about the stories I've been writing and what my plans are for those going forward. I've already talked about them a little bit in previous videos. I talked about it a little bit in the Reinventing the Channel video, and also in the It's Game Tech video. I talked about the fan fiction stories that I wrote for Smallville and Supernatural. Oh, I'm burping. And I also talked about the horror novels that I've written that I wanted to re-upload to the channel. The fan fiction stories for Smallville and Supernatural, they are on fanfiction.net, and I may include, I'll probably put a link in the description of this video to those stories that I've written there. The first crossover story that I wrote is called Monsters in Smallville. The second story is called Ominous Signs. And the third story is called The Hunt Is All There Is. I haven't finished that one yet, but I do need to get back to working on it soon. The first two stories, Monsters in Smallville and Ominous Signs, were rewrites of Season 1 episodes from Smallville, but with supernatural characters included in it from the two TV shows. Oh, your crossover stories turned out really good, Al. I haven't read them all the way through, but I have read Monsters in Smallville. And I think part 2 of Monsters in Smallville was my favorite because Lex Luthor had a ghost in his mansion. Oh yeah. And I think part 2 of the first story is, when it comes to the fan fiction, probably my favorite bit of writing. Just because most of the action happened in the Luthor mansion. And the reason why that part of all of the fan fiction writing is my favorite is because in Smallville, the scenes that happened in the Luthor mansion were some of my favorites. Yes, there were some bad episodes of Smallville. That is why the first 2 fanfiction stories are rewrites of episodes that were on Smallville. The only episodes that I did rewrites of that I would say are bad episodes from Smallville, from Season 1, were Shimmer, Craving, and Drone. Those were probably 3 episodes of Smallville that deserved a rewrite where the supernatural characters were included. In season 1 of Smallville, the episode Craving, it was about this girl that had basically an eating disorder, but it was made worse by the fact that she was consuming these vegetable shakes that she made in a blender that were grown in kryptonite. And in Smallville, kryptonite did some weird things to people. So in my rewrite of Craving, I just renamed it Thirst, and I turned her into an actual vampire, instead of a fat-sucking vampire. Oh no! Al, that episode was crazy. I remember watching Craving in Smallville, when she was sucking the fat out of everything. She sucked the fat out of a deer, and some guy that was a douchebag to her. He had it coming, but in the rewrite, he is also a vampire. Oh no! There were some other Smallville characters that I turned into vampires as well. I think part 1 of Monsters in Smallville, that was fun to write, but I was just testing the water, you know. It was my first time writing a crossover fan fiction for these shows, and I'm glad that I turned Craving into part 1 of Monsters in Smallville, because the vampire story was good. And the fact that John Winchester and Daniel Elkins were in that from Supernatural, oh, that just made it so much better. But in part 2, Sam and Dean Winchester get to be in the story. And in that part of the story, Dean Winchester is barely old enough to drink alcohol, and Sam is still 18 years old, and he's trying to get his GED and go to college. So, there's that. But as far as the original stories that I've come up with, not the fanfiction stories, but my own original works, I've got 4 stories that I've worked on. The 4th one I haven't finished. I haven't worked on it in a while, unfortunately. But 3 of the stories are done. The first one is called Man in the Pond. The second one is called Twist. And the third one is called The Dead Man Walking. And The Dead Man Walking is not quite what it sounds like from the title. You would think that The Dead Man Walking was about a zombie that rose from the dead. But that's not really what the story is about. Yeah, you would think that, Al. I haven't read your, Dead Man Walking story yet, but you have told me about it. Yeah. Basically, The Dead Man Walking is about a tornado demon that is terrorizing the Great Plains and several towns that it runs through. And the reason why it's about a tornado demon is because of one reason. And that reason is because of the Jarrell, Texas tornado. If, to anybody watching this video, if you go on to Google and you type in Jarrell, Texas tornado Dead Man Walking, you will understand why this story has that title. Because the tornado looks like it has arms and legs, and it looks like it's walking. And in the story, the tornado demon is actually walking, and its arms and legs are made out of tornado funnels. Very large tornado funnels. Oh yeah. Sounds like an awesome story, Al. And I can't wait. Well, hang on. Originally, I uploaded Man in the Pond and Twist to the YouTube channel as part of a really big series of videos that I made called 100 Days of Halloween. Those are currently privatized right now. I may unprivatize them at some point, just because Boomer and I did put a lot of work into 100 Days of Halloween, especially when it comes to Man in the Pond and Twist. The problem with those stories is when I uploaded them for 100 Days of Halloween, I left the bloopers in the videos for the sake of comedy. But now I kind of wish I wouldn't have done that. And that's why I want to re-upload Man in the Pond and Twist. I want the stories to be taken much more seriously. Because the stories themselves, the content in them, is very serious. Despite the fact that Man in the Pond starts out kind of funny, with the characters making jokes and stuff, it's a story that gradually gets scarier and scarier as it goes. And while I do want to make light of the first couple chapters of Man in the Pond because of the jokes that the characters made, beyond that, I want the story to be taken very seriously. So, no fart jokes, no dick jokes, none of that. Oh no! But it doesn't help that when we recorded Man in the Pond for 100 Days of Halloween, you kept blowing air out of your butt crack. And that's why there were bloopers. Yep. But I will say that out of all the horror novels that I've written, not out of the fan fiction, but of the original stories that I came up with, I think Man in the Pond will always be my favorite, even though I had fun writing Twist and The Dead Man Walking. The reason why Man in the Pond is so special to me is because I wrote probably 2/3 of it while I was staying in a psychiatric unit after almost ending my life. You know, I got really close to doing it back in 2024. I won't talk about the method that I used. I won't talk about the experience of being suicidal in this video, but I will talk about my experiences of writing Man in the Pond at the psychiatric unit. Because what happened is I had a lot of time to kill in that psychiatric unit. I stayed there for a week. Yes, I spent time with other people. I went to the group therapy. I made friends, things like that, you know. I did spend time with people at the psychiatric unit, and I met some really good people there. But since I am an introvert, I did need some time to myself, you know. And that time to myself was spent with a little tiny pencil and a pad of notebook paper that they let me have, you know. And some of the nights when I couldn't sleep very good, those were my writing nights. And there were also times during the day when, you know, I knew I needed time to myself, and I would just tell the people that I was hanging out with that I wanted to go work on my story, and they were okay with that, you know? And there was a point in writing Man in the Pond when I ran into some major writer's block at the psychiatric unit. Took me a while to come up with some ideas to make the story continue on, but out of all the things that could have possibly motivated me to continue the story, it was the moment when I was standing by the window watching somebody mow the lawn by the parking lot on a zero-turn lawnmower. And it was one of those lawnmowers where they weren't just sitting on it. They were standing on the back of it, and they were using these handlebar things to steer the lawnmower. And so in Man in the Pond, I wrote a scene where somebody was standing on the back of a zero-turn lawnmower, and one of the main characters from the story was out in the parking lot. And I was able to continue the story from there. That's pretty cool, Al. That of all things, a zero-turn lawnmower is what got you to continue the story. Oh yeah. And there was also a hilarious moment while I was working on the story late in the evening, I think. I think it was during the nighttime. And I was coming up to a really scary part in the story. Like, I was getting really close to it. And one of the nurses came to check on me. She opened the door right as I was getting to the scary stuff. You know, she opened the door to my room just to check on me. And I was like, oh, what's that? Oh no! The nurse spooked you because your story was getting scary. That's hilarious, Al. Oh yeah, it is. But I think just because of the fact that I wrote most of Man in the Pond while staying at the psychiatric unit, I think that is why Man in the Pond will always be special to me. Despite the fact that I had fun working on the other stories too. I had to blow my nose for a second there. I'm going to cut that out of the video. But my sinuses were draining down the back of my throat again, and I almost gagged on it. So I blew my nose really quick and ate some popcorn because that is what Boomer and I are snacking on. Oh yeah! And as vegans, we're having a good popcorn here because it's just salt, and I think it's got olive oil or palm oil in it. Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much all the popcorn has in it. And it is really good popcorn, you know. But, yeah. Those are the stories that I've worked on so far. It's Game Tech is turning the crossover fanfiction stories into a comic book. And I can't wait to share those when he decides that he's ready. But as for Man in the Pond, Twist, and The Dead Man Walking, I think I want to get around to uploading those as soon as I can. In fact, I think Man in the Pond, the reposting of it, should be the next big project for this channel. I think I agree, Al. And the first time we worked on Man in the Pond, it was fun doing the voice of Steve. Because Steve in that story is based off of your cousin Steve. Yep. And I was able to do his voice pretty good. Because his voice isn't very different from mine. It just has a different pitch to it. Yep. And you also did the voices of the demon. You know, Man in the Pond is an evil spirit. You know. And you did a great job doing the voice of that. So I'm looking forward to hearing you doing the voice of the ghost or demon or whatever it is again.
Oh yeah, Al. I can't wait to get back to working on Man in the Pond. And in Twist, I also did the voice of one of the characters in that story. He was the police chief. Or not the police chief, but I think he was a captain of the police.
Yeah, because Twist is a story about a police detective who is trapped in a haunted mansion filled with ghosts. And one of those ghosts in particular has a vendetta against him. And that was an interesting story too. Yeah. And when it came to Twist, my cousin Tyler came up with the ideas for the characters. And of course Tyler ended up as a character in Man in the Pond as well. But he came up with the ideas for the characters of Twist, and I just wrote the story and then had him read it as I was making progress, and he liked it all the way to the end. So yeah, I can't wait to get back to re-uploading Man in the Pond and Twist, and I can't wait to share The Dead Man Walking as well.
It's going to be awesome, Al, when we get around to posting your stories on here. And your fourth story that you haven't finished yet is called The Chess Master.
Mm-hmm. And that one I do need to get back to working on it, but I won't go into detail about what that one's about. Maybe a little bit. It's about this psychopathic chess master who kidnaps people and forces them to play chess against each other with shock collars around their necks. And if they lose too many games in a row, they die. But if they win enough games in a row, I forget what happens at that point, but Chess Master was a fun story to write as well. Just because I love chess. And in the Chess Master story, multiple chess games happened, and as the chess games were occurring, I had this chessboard where I set up the pieces and I had the coordinates on the board, and I just made the moves and wrote down the chess moves in the story itself. That way, other people who like to play chess can follow along with what's happening, and they can even take out their own chessboard and make the moves and be like, ooh, so that's how it goes.
Yep. Hopefully you can finish the Chess Master soon, Al. That way we can get all your stories uploaded to the channel.
Oh yeah. But this video ended up being quite long, so I think I'm going to go ahead and end it here. If anybody watched this and listened to our conversation, go ahead and hit the like button if you want to, and subscribe if you haven't already. Because I think if you are new to the channel and you subscribe, I think you will like Man in the Pond and Twist. Anyway, I'm going to end the video here, I think.
Sounds good to me, Al. We've been recording for a long time.
Oh yeah, we have. Getting hiccups or some shit. Huh. But I'm going to end the video, I think. See you guys later, whoever watched this.